Five echoes, one city, a love that slipped between what was said and what stayed silent. Some stories are loud, this one lingers. This is The Echo Between Worlds, Part 1, What Remains After. The tram doesn't stop here anymore, but I do. Every night, same time, same silence. I sit on the stone bench where we first said nothing, where your hand brushed mine by accident or on purpose. I never asked. You said, Lisbon is a city that remembers too much. I didn't answer, but I remember that. The tiles cracked the day you left. The lights flickered like they knew. Even the sea pulled back, a tide that refused to return. I talk to you here, not out loud, but the kind of talking where every breath is a name, and every name is yours. Somewhere in this city, a hallway still echoes your footsteps. Somewhere, a cafe keeps your table open. Somewhere, I still turn toward the light, even though I know the light doesn't wait. If you ever waited for someone who never came back, you already know what the next echo sounds like. We were in the same room once. You were brushing sugar off a table. I was watching your hands, like they were telling me how to stay. The coffee had gone cold. We drank it anyway. And then, nothing broke, nothing burned, no goodbye. Just the door clicking shut, like it had always done. But now, when I speak, there's a pause before the silence, a hesitation, like a voice trying to reply from the other side of a mirror. Would you turn around or keep walking? Maybe I'm the glass. Maybe you were the hand. And this is the echo of something that never happened, but keeps repeating like it did. Some memories never happened, and some places were never on the map. There's a hill in Lisbon where the bells don't reach. The tourists walk past it, the maps forget it, but we knew. You said it felt like an island, suspended in someone else's dream. We kissed there once, lips pressed like they were trying to memorize the shape of the other. I don't remember the day, only the heat of your hand and the silence after. Even the birds didn't speak, even the wind seemed to pause. That street doesn't have a name, or if it does, it isn't one I ever remembered. I walked there again tonight. My footsteps didn't echo. Maybe that's what it means to forget. Or maybe it's what it means to be remembered only by shadows. Rain remembers things we pretend we've left behind. It rained the day I stopped looking for you. Not the romantic drizzle that justifies a kiss. No. The kind of rain that soaks all the way through, until the only thing left to hide is your voice. I passed your building. I timed it. The 6:04 tram had just gone by. I knew it because the tracks were still humming, like something had just left me behind. The cafe downstairs had new flowers. I hated that. I stood in the doorway, not knocking, not moving, just letting the rain do what I couldn't. Wash it all clean. Some rooms forget, some refuse to. The moment you leave, they rearrange themselves, pull new light across the floor, close over what was there. But not mine. It still holds your shadow against the wall, still curves the air around your name like it's afraid I'll stop saying it. I moved the furniture. I threw away the cup you always used, the chipped one with the gold rim. Still, every time I reach for something, I expect to find you already holding it. Once I lit a candle too close to your side of the bed. The flame flickered so suddenly, I whispered sorry, without thinking. No one was there. The air answered. That's what it's like now. Not haunted, just full. Full of all the things we didn't get to finish. Maybe the room is waiting. Maybe I am too. The first time I spoke your name out loud, no one was there to hear it, but the air changed, like Lisbon paused, just long enough for me to notice I was still here, still waiting. They used to ask, "Why don't you leave?" I'd say, "Because some cities remember for you, and some silence don't stop echoing, even after you do." 5 echoes, 1 city, a love that wasn't lost, just never returned the way it left. This is the echo between worlds, part 2, when silence answered back. You didn't slam the door. You clicked it shut. Like punctuation at the end of a sentence neither of us wanted to finish. I remember the sound. It was too careful, too final. I told myself it was mutual, that letting go quietly meant we both understood. But I stayed in the same city. The candle you lit that morning, sandalwood and citrus. It followed me down the stairs. I haven't lit it since. I walked into the cafe that afternoon. Didn't order, just sat, trying to feel free. But freedom didn't feel like wind or wings. It felt like weight. Redistributed to everything you left behind. I checked my phone, once for your name, once for a time. Neither said what I needed. And that's what the exit really was. No silence, but the absence of an answer. If you ever left, and still looked back through every window after, you already know what the next echo sounds like. Your toothbrush is gone, so is your book on the nightstand. No reason to cook for 2 anymore. I played music, not because I felt like dancing, just to remind the room that someone still lived here. The breeze touched everything, but it moved nothing, like it didn't believe in me yet. I arranged the furniture without planning to. Desk by the window, chair at the corner you never liked, a single mug in the cupboard. I didn't know where to put the quiet. It kept sliding into the spaces you used to fill. I took a photo of the bed, empty, posted it without explanation. The comment said it looked peaceful. I didn't know peace and loneliness use the same silence. I still sleep on my side, the left, even when I'm alone. Some rooms don't need furniture to feel full, just the memory of someone who made gravity. I looked through old photos, not for you, for me, to remember what I looked like when I was being looked at with love. Your shirt's still in the drawer. I wear it on days I don't want to explain myself. It doesn't smell like you anymore, but I still check. I saw someone today. Same walk, same coat. My heart jumped like it forgot, like it still thinks you might turn around. Freedom doesn't always taste like sweetness. Sometimes it's just what's left when the cup is half full, and you still set out 2 months. Some mornings don't need words to be shared, but once they go quiet, it's hard to make them ours again. I told a joke at dinner. No one laughed. You would have. You always knew when I was being sarcastic and when I was just tired. The city hasn't changed, but I feel misplaced in it, like a bookmark in the wrong chapter, still inside the story, but not where I'm supposed to be. I walked past our old street again. It's quieter now. Maybe it's just me. I hummed the song you used to play. Got halfway through. The silence remembered the rest. I started talking to strangers, not for company, just to hear my voice bounce back. Someone asked me about Lisbon. I said it's a city of windows, because even now, every time I look through one, I wonder if someone's looking back. That's what it felt like with you. We were always looking, just never at the same time. Some silence don't need translation, but the ones we shared, they still speak, especially when no one else does. I passed the cafe, didn't look in, didn't stop. But the chair you always turn sideways, still angled like you might come back, and sit down like you used to, half open, half waiting. The glass next to it still had a faint ring. Something warm was there. Maybe memory. Maybe just a good espresso. You didn't chase me, but you didn't close the door either. You just left it ajar. And sometimes that's more dangerous than goodbye. I walked to the ocean since. The tide comes in like it always does, unapologetic, unchanged. I whispered your name once. The wind caught it, but didn't return. And I thought, maybe the door never closed, because part of me still lives on the threshold. The Echo Between Worlds, Part 3, Where the Hurt Hides. Some echoes don't return all at once. They slip in sideways, through a window left ajar, through a breast held too long, through the name he stopped saying, until it spilled out by accident. He thought the echoes were done, thought silence had finished what memory started, but the hurt had only hidden. But Lisbon kept holding him, with its cracked tiles, and its rooms that refused to forget. And he's still here, still listening, still mistaking silence for healing. It was just air. That's what I told myself. A breeze brushing past the curtain, not a memory. But I should have checked the window, should have closed it, should have noticed the way it leaned open, like something was still trying to get in. I thought I packed everything, the photos, the charger, even the jacket you hated wearing. I left the mug, the chipped one. It felt fair, something to keep you company. Grief doesn't knock, it waits for the half-open window, the half-deleted playlist, the scent that shouldn't still exist. It crawled in last night. While I was brushing my teeth, I looked up and you were there. Just a version of you my mind keeps in the mirror. I almost said your name, not for you, but to see if I still could. They say it gets easier, that love fades like bruises. But this one didn't fade. It climbed in through the window I forgot to close. I said your name today, not out loud, but I heard it in my head, in that split second between waking and remembering you're gone. It startled me, like it didn't belong in my mouth anymore, like I borrowed someone else's grief. I used to say it easily, in cafés, in grocery stores, in the middle of a crowd, like the name would find you faster than I could. Now it feels different, heavier, sharp at edges, like something that should only be whispered into a room that still misses you. I tried writing it down just once, but my hand shook as if the ink knew it wasn't supposed to remember you this clearly. You're still here, aren't you? In the ache behind my teeth, in the pause before I speak, in the name I carry but can't say without splintering. They say the first step to healing is naming the pain. So I tried, and your name was heavier than I remembered. I didn't mean to end up on our street. I told myself I was heading somewhere else, a bookstore, a lookout, anywhere. But somehow every street led to you. Every wrong turn wasn't wrong at all. It was memory. I passed the corner where we used to wait for the tram. Your shadow wasn't there, but mine stretched long enough for both of us. I kept walking, saw the bakery you loved, the one that spelled your name wrong on the receipt. I still have it. It's folded in a book I haven't touched since. You're in everything here. The bench, the street lamp, the sound the rain makes on those red tiles. I keep thinking, I'll turn a corner and forget you. But Lisbon doesn't work like that. It folds you in. And I'm too tired to fight the map anymore. I looked in the mirror tonight, not to fix anything, just to see. But I couldn't tell if the person looking back was still me. I used to joke that you could read my face like subtitles. You always knew what I was about to say even when I didn't. And now I stare at myself like I'm waiting for someone else to speak. I try practicing what I say if you were still standing there. But every sentence started with your name and ended before you could land. I thought the mirror might answer, might reflect something back that felt like truth. Instead, it just watched me crack a little. The silence in this room used to be ours, Even when we didn't speak, we understood it. Now it's just quiet, too quiet, like the air is afraid to remember you out loud. I keep waiting for the mirror to blink first, but it doesn't. It just stays there. I replayed it again, that moment, the one we both knew should have been the end. We were on the stairs. You were holding the railing, like you needed it to stay balanced. Like maybe you weren't sure if you should leave or ask me to stop you. I didn't say anything. You didn't either. We just stood there, trying to look casual, while everything underneath us cracked. That was the moment we should have stopped, should have left it there, before we started hurting each other in new ways, before the silence got mean. But we didn't. We kept going, stayed just long enough to forget why we loved each other in the first place. I remember the night you told me you didn't know how to be in the room with me without feeling like you were vanishing. I said nothing. I should have said I know, because I was vanishing too. I still walk past the stairwell sometimes. It's nothing now, just stairs. But for me, it's still the place where we made the worst mistake love can make. We kept going when we already knew we shouldn't. And now, even memory hurts more than it heals. Some stories don't end with goodbye. They echo. In rooms, in cities, in people who keep listening, even after the silence begins. This is the echo between worlds, a quiet love story that ended in pieces, in memories, in the space between what was said and what stayed unsaid. It began in Lisbon, two people, one love that fractured quietly. Each part has followed the echo from different side of the loss. Now the silence has shifted. Some might call it healing or freedom. Some just call it quiet. Lisbon still remembers. I didn't plan to go anywhere today, just walked. The air felt clear, not light, but not heavy either, like the ache had finally stopped checking in. The city looked the same, tiles still chipped in the same corners. Shutters still half open on Rua de Flores. Even the cafe across from the post office still put out 2 sugar packets with every espresso. I used to wonder if it hurt him too, the remembering. Now I don't wonder, not because I know, just because I don't need to. I walked past the old bookstore, didn't stop, didn't even glance at the window where his reflection used to land. Everything's quieter now. Not because I forgot, but because forgetting stopped feeling urgent. There's a kind of silence that doesn't ask questions anymore. Just walks beside you like a shadow that learned not to speak first. Today felt like that. Maybe that's all freedom is. Not the end of the memory, just the part where it stops pulling. The waiter asked if I wanted anything sweet. I said just a tart. I didn't mean it like that. 1 pastel di nata, 1 bicca, the view. Everything was fine. Warm light, table facing the water. I took a bite, too sweet, and then the coffee, bitter. I smiled like it meant something. No one noticed. There was a time when this would have been a perfect morning, a place to pause, to talk, to laugh at how the espresso always too strong. I even imagined you sitting there, just for a second. Same chair, elbow on the table, head tilted like always. You weren't there, of course, but the quiet was shaped like you. Like the cafe had saved the place not for a person, but for a feeling you used to leave behind. I didn't linger, didn't take a picture, didn't even finish the tart. But I kept thinking, who taught me to sit like that? To sip slowly, to face the river. Not the waiter, not the view. Some habits aren't yours. They just live in your hands after someone else is gone. I stopped at the bakery, bought a small loaf, still warm. Not because I was hungry, just because it smelled good. Because it was there. Then I passed the flower stand, picked one, white, delicate. Didn't ask for the name. I told myself it was a kind gesture, something soft to carry, something simple. To choose something without needing permission. That's what freedom is, right? Doing things for no one, not explaining them, not performing. I didn't need the bread, didn't care about the flour, but I bought them anyway. Maybe I just needed something to carry that wasn't memory, something to hold that didn't hurt. Someone laughed behind me, and for a second, I smiled too. No reason, just the sound of it. I turned, expecting someone to meet my eyes, to share the moment, to let it land. But there was no one, just footsteps fading. The river still moving, a plastic bag caught in a tree. That's what I miss maybe, not the love, not even the touch. Just having someone to look at when the world surprised me. I walked a while. The path curved gently beside the water. Tiles shifted under my feet. There were couples, tourists, an old man with a cane who looked like he'd done this every day for decades. They moved around me like I wasn't there. Not in a cruel way, just like I wasn't part of it. I passed the railing and stopped. I thought I was done with it. Thought I could walk through the city without thinking of you. But the laughter, that smile, it didn't belong to me. I just borrowed it, and it didn't stay. The apartment was darker than I remembered, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for me to come back. I set the bread on the counter, the flower beside it, a quiet room, and a version of myself I hadn't heard from all day. Funny, I spent the whole day feeling like I was past this, past you, past everything. But the space didn't care. It remembered. It remembered how you used to leave a book open on the couch, how the window latch never sat quite right, how I always paused just before turning on the light, like you might already be there. I sat down without turning anything on, just sat. in the same place you once stood, saying something I've forgotten in a voice I still remember. People think moving on feels like closing a door, but sometimes it's just sitting in the same chair with different silence, the kind that doesn't hurt anymore, but still looks like you when the lights are off. Ellie. Some stories don't begin where you expect. This one began in silence, 5 echoes in Lisbon, memories spoken, unanswered, carried through streets that remembered too much. First we heard one side, then the other, and for a long time, one name was never spoken, until now. Ellie. We know him now, not just as a voice in the quiet, but as the one who stayed, the one who ached, the one still finding how to breathe again. This part belongs to him. And though the ache is not fully gone, Lisbon is beginning to sound different. Not healed, not finished, but lighter. I heard it, my name. Not loud, not clear, but enough to stop me under the street lamp. No one has called me that here in so long. Lisbon only knew me through silence, through absence. But tonight, for a moment, the city remembered me. Mateus. I waited, like maybe the air would answer, like maybe he would turn the corner, like maybe saying it aloud could bring him back. But nothing came, just the night, just me. And somehow that was enough. It startled me, saying it. The name felt heavier than I remembered, but not unbearable, not like before. I think I could carry it now, carry him, not as a wound, but as something that happened, something that mattered. The ache is still here, but lighter, not gone, just shifting. For the first time, I felt like I might be able to keep walking without breaking. I dreamt you said my name, not the way it used to be. Half a laugh, half a secret. This time it was slower, uncertain, like the word itself wasn't sure it belonged here anymore. In the dream, we were in the kitchen. The light was too warm, the air too still. You were standing by the counter, one hand on the chipped cup, the one I thought I threw away. You looked at me like no time had passed, like nothing had broken. I tried to answer, but the dream didn't wait. It blurred the edges, turned the room sideways, pushed me back into silence. I reached out. My hand didn't find yours. It found the empty pillow. I woke with your name in my mouth, not spoken, but almost. Like the dream had tried to finish what I couldn't. They say time heals when you're awake, but maybe sleep knows better. Maybe sleep remembers the things I try not to. And maybe tonight, the dream spoke first, so I didn't have to. I started with the bed. The sheet still carried you, even after all this time. The scent wasn't yours anymore, not really, but my body kept remembering. Every time I lay down, the silence felt like a shape I couldn't sleep beside. So I bought new bedding, clean, unfamiliar, not ours. The old said, I didn't fold it, didn't wash it. I tied it into a bag and threw it away. It felt wrong, like erasing proof that you were ever here. But when I spread the new fabric out, the bed looked lighter. I told myself it was just cotton, just fabric, nothing sacred. But maybe letting go on one thing is enough to remind me I can't keep going. I didn't stop with the bed. The sheets were only the first thing. But once they were gone, I saw everything else that still carried you. The curtains. They smelled of nights we left the window open, of rain that once blew in when we didn't care. I pulled them down, bought new ones, clean, plain, nothing that remembers. Then the pajamas, the pair you left behind, half crumpled in the bottom drawer. I thought about keeping them, just one thing, but the thought of wearing them felt like pretending you might walk in again. So I folded them, and this time I let them go. Piece by piece I tried to erase you, not cruelly, not angrily, just because I needed to breathe again. And for a moment, the room felt lighter, not healed, not finished, but mine. The candle was next. I had kept it longer than I should have. The same scent, sandalwood and citrus. The one you lit that morning before the door clicked shut. Every time it burned, I swore I heard your voice in the crackle. Every time it flickered, I thought maybe the room still remembered you. Tonight I let it burn down. No saving it. No trimming the wick. Just sitting beside it until the light faltered. When the flame finally disappeared, the room felt darker, but not heavier. I told myself it was just wax, just scent, nothing sacred. But I didn't leave the room in shadow. I lit another, a different scent, something clean, something unfamiliar. The air felt differently this time, not haunted, not heavy, just mine. For the first time, the flame didn't carry you, it carried me. The chipped cup, I thought I could throw it away. The one that stayed when everything else was gone. I picked it up, ready to let it go, but my hand stopped halfway. Instead, I poured it one last drink, let it hold warmth again, even if no one would touch it. I sat across the table, watching the steam rise like it was breathing. Poor thing. Already damaged, already marked. What will be the point of breaking it further? So I left it there. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe then I'll be cruel enough to throw it away. Some stories begin in silence, in echoes that belong to only one voice. First we heard Ellie, the one who stayed, who carried absence in every room. Then we heard Mateus, the one who left, lighter, freer, but still turning back. Now their names have been spoken, Ellie, Mateus. Not just voices in the quiet, but people, each holding a different side of what was lost. This part belongs to Mateus, to the one who walked away from weight, but still find absence waiting in the corners of his freedom. The echo between worlds isn't only about endings. It's about what remains after, and how even freedom carries a shadow. This is Echo Between Worlds, Part 6, What the Walls Remembered. 5 echoes, one church that has stood through centuries, one man who is learning that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. I stopped beneath the towers. They looked heavier than they felt. All stone, all history. But the sky leaned on them, like it trusted they wouldn't break. I thought about how long they've stood here, centuries of weather, of people who left and never came back. Even silence must echo when it's carried this high. For a moment, I didn't feel small. I felt untethered, like the towers were holding the weight of remembering for me, so I didn't have to. Freedom isn't wings, not really. It's the ground not asking you to explain why you're still walking. It's being able to stand in front of walls this old and not feel their questions pressing into your chest. I didn't think of Ellie at first, not in the carving shaped like ropes, not in the rose window that caught the sun. For once, the silence wasn't pointing me back to him. It was just stone. Stone that had seen everything and didn't need me to add my story. I let myself look up until my neck ached. The sky spilled between the towers, so open it almost felt careless. And I thought, maybe that's all freedom is. Not forgetting, not erasing, just standing under the towers of something that has lasted and realizing the weight is theirs to hold, not mine. Inside, the air shifted, cooler, heavier, as if it had been waiting centuries for someone to notice. The light poured through the glass and fell across the floor, not loud, not commending, just steady, like it had made peace with the stone. I walked the center aisle, not hurried, not looking for anything, just watching the light lean against the columns, like a hand finding a shoulder. For once, I didn't feel out of place. The ceiling stretched too high to touch, but it didn't make me small. It made the silence bigger. And in that space, I could breathe without rushing. I thought about how light doesn't belong to anyone. It falls where it wants, across wood, across stone, across the seat that might have been his. But today was only wood and sunlight. And I wondered if that's what freedom is. Not filling every absence, not explaining every shadow, but letting light fall where it does, without asking it to mean more than it is. I sat for a moment in the sun, let it land on my hands, let it tell me nothing. And for the first time in a while, that was enough. The courtyard was open but not empty. Stone on four sides, but the arches made space for the sky to lean in. I sat near the fountain, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to hear water instead of my own thoughts. The carvings wound their way around the arches, ropes, shells, leaves. All these details someone cared enough to shape, even though the centuries had already promised to wear them down. I wondered if they thought about time, or just the quiet joy of tracing stone into something alive. It didn't feel like a place for grief. The silence here wasn't asking for memory, wasn't reminding me of absence. It was just silence, the kind you can lean back into, like sun against your shoulders. I let myself sit without answering to anyone, without holding or naming what wasn't here. I thought of Ellie, briefly, the way absence always tries to pull at the corner of things. But here, even that thought softened, as if the arches caught it and held it still until it faded. The chapel was darker than the nave, stone pressing close, shadows leaning in. I lit a candle, not because I had words, but because sometimes silence needed its own shape. I didn't say his name, not here, not to the walls, not even to myself. The flame didn't need it. It burned without asking, without tying itself to memory. For a moment, I thought about prayer, about how it's supposed to rise, up, out, carried by fire and smoke. But this candle just stayed. It didn't reach, it didn't plead, it only burned, quiet and sure, like it knew the dark was enough. I could have named Ellie. I could have let the flame speak for me. But freedom isn't always saying less. Sometimes it's knowing silence is enough. So I left it. A candle without words, a flame without claim. And for a moment, walking away felt freer than naming anything at all. The cafe smelled of sugar and cinnamon. I told myself it was just habit, to order the tart, to sit by the window, to watch the sun spill across the plate. It was ordinary, sweet, warm, golden. Something small to remind me that not every silence has to be heavy. I looked up, and through the glass, I saw him. Not clear, not long enough to hold. Just Ellie. His shape caught in the light, passing by as if the street was the only place he ever belonged. My chest froze. The spoon stopped halfway. For a second, the cafe felt quiet, the tart forgotten, the air itself waiting. I pushed the chair back. I ran out the door, heart beating like it still knew his name. The street was already empty, just the river's light, just the sound of gulls, just absence, patient as ever. I stood there, breath caught between freedom and longing, and knew he was gone. Or maybe he'd never been there at all, but the tart would still be waiting inside. The light would still fall across the plate, and I would still walk forward, carrying both the freedom and the echo, like the river carries its tide. Some echoes linger, others fade, but the most stubborn ones, they live in the choice we repeat. This is the echo between worlds, a quiet love story told across the city that remembers everything, told in pieces, in footsteps, in the pauses between names. It began with Ellie, the one who stayed, the one who carried silence in every room. Then we heard Mateus, the one who left, lighter, freer, but still looking back. They shared no reunion, only a memory that drifted through doors, over water, under windows left ajar. In the final moment of part 6, Mateus passed by, a silhouette, a second too late. Ellie never saw him, and maybe that was the point. Because this isn't a story of return. This is the final echo. The one where Ellie no longer walks in memory's shadow, where he doesn't whisper the name that used to stop his breath, where the cup, the candle, the bed are just objects again. And Lisbon still remembers, but this time, Ellie chose not to echo. Today, the pattern didn't repeat. This is the echo between worlds, part 7. The square didn't echo back. I passed through the square this morning. Didn't plan to. Didn't avoid it either. The light was already warm on the stone. Those black and white patterns curling beneath my steps. Lines I used to think were traps. Circles that always pull me back to the same questions. Where did you go? Why didn't I follow? What would have happened if I had? But today, The pattern didn't repeat. It was just pavement, just stone warmed by the sun. People passed around me, couples, an old man with a dog, someone carrying coffee. No one saw me, and for once I didn't feel the need to be seen. I used to come here with hope, as if the city would return something I lost, as if every tile, every shadow might echo your name back to me if I stood still long enough. But now I stood in the middle of the square, and it was quiet. No memory in the corners, no voice in the wind, just Lisbon being Lisbon. I thought about sitting, about letting the light soak in, but I didn't need to linger. The silence wasn't asking me to stay anymore. It was still trying to teach me something. It was just silence, and I was just walking through it. I didn't leave with grief. I didn't leave with answers. I left with nothing in my hands, and that felt like freedom. I didn't plan where to go after the square. I just walked. No headphones, no list, no need to make it mean anything. The streets used to trick me. Every turn felt like a loop. Like if I walked the same path enough times, you might round the corner again, laughing, distracted, not knowing I was waiting. But today, the city didn't pull. The street we used to take to the bookstore, I passed it, didn't pause, didn't look for your reflection in the glass. The alley near the cafe where you used to stand, just to feel the sun hit your face. I kept walking. Not to prove anything, not out of avoidance, just because I didn't need to go back. There's a rhythm to Lisbon, a beat in the stones, in the sway of laundry from open balconies, in the scent of bread and salt on the breeze. I used to think the city was singing your name. Today it just hummed, and I let it. Some streets still remember us, but they don't belong to us, not anymore. And I think I finally stopped asking them to. I stepped into the lift slowly. Metal gates closed with a sound that used to make me flinch. But today, I only heard the rhythm of motion, upward. As the elevator climbed, Lisbon unfolded beneath me. First the patterned stones, then the rooftops, then the layers of city stitched into hills and memory. I watched the woman adjust her laundry line. A boy kicked a ball into a narrow alley. Someone opened the shutter to the sky. So ordinary, so alive. I used to feel like a ghost among these streets, always passing through, always afraid I'd be seen, or wouldn't. But now I stood still. Halfway up, my reflection flickered in the glass, and I didn't look away this time. There was a version of me, hoping someone would call out my name. But he's not here. I kept rising. I let the ache stay with me, but I didn't let it stop me. And as the doors opened, and the city met my eyes again, I understood something. I had finally outgrown the silence. I didn't expect the quiet to be this full. Up here, the wind finds you first. It brushes past my collar, slips through my fingers as I hold the railing. Like a pulse, light but alive. Lisbon spreads beneath me like a map I no longer need to read. Red roofs, faded blue tiles, a line of light where the river bends. And far in the distance, a sound, fado maybe, or just memory and song. I used to wonder if Mateus ever stood here, if he ever looked out at the same sky and thought of me. I guess I'll never know. But today, that absence doesn't ache like it used to. It's just part of the city now, like the rusted corners of this rail, like the names carved into wood and metal, people who passed through, hoping to be remembered. I'm not here for that. I'm here to listen. The wind, the light, my own breath, steady for once. For a long time, I thought healing would feel like a door slamming shut, but it doesn't. It feels like air. I asked for a quiet table, and they gave me this. By the wall, under the warm flicker of an old bulb, close enough to hear the music, but far enough to stay unnoticed. Fado fills the room like candlelight, low, aching, honest. There's a red wine in my glass, a half-full one across from it. I've never been to this place before, but it doesn't feel unfamiliar. Maybe because Lisbon finally doesn't scare me. Maybe because tonight, I'm not waiting for a ghost to walk in. He was introduced by a friend, said he'd be passing through the city. We don't know what this is, or if it will be anything, but he smiled when I said yes to wine. He stepped away for a moment. I stayed seated. I don't check my phone. I just let myself be here. The sound of strings and sorrow, a candle between us, and the quiet relief of not searching anymore. Some echoes never returned. Some ended where the city led them. Elise stayed. Mateus left. And still, Lisbon carried them both. Through rooms that remembered too much. Through walls that held silence longer than voices. But today the silence has shifted again. Not toward absence, not toward longing, just toward the weight of stone and the open water that never asked for names. This is the echo between worlds, part 8, what the river still carried. The last of the echoes, the one carried not by waiting, but by walking. I stopped beneath the tower. It didn't look like it was waiting for me. Not like the rooms, not like the streets that used to echo his name. This was stone, centuries of tide rising and falling, and still it stood. For once, I didn't feel smaller. I felt steadier, like the tower was carrying the memory for me, so I didn't have to. I leaned against the railing, watching the river stretch out. The water wasn't asking questions. It just moved forward, out to the sea, like it had always done. And I thought, maybe that's what I wanted all along. Not answers, not echoes, just the sense that world keeps moving without me. Freedom isn't forgetting. It's standing under stone this old, this patient, and realizing I don't need to hold everything anymore. The street always pulled me before. Every corner felt like it might turn back into him. Every climb dragged my thoughts down, even when the stones pushed my body up. But today, the climb was only a climb, just stone steps, just light hitting pastel walls, just air moving through a city that didn't belong to us anymore. I used to walk here like a ghost, chasing shadows, counting how many turns it took before memory broke me. But this morning, the city didn't take. It gave. Breath, rhythm, the simple weight of my body moving uphill without asking for permission. I stopped at the shop on the corner, bought bread, a few vegetables, nothing special, just enough for later. And carrying that bag, I realized something. I wasn't buying for anyone else, not for a memory, not for a ghost, only for myself. Maybe freedom is this, not silence, not forgetting, just letting the climb be a climb instead of a trap. The tower gave me the river, the hills gave me the climb, and now the stairs led me higher still, not toward the city, but toward myself. There was a time when these steps felt like weight. Every creak of the railing, every shadow on the wall, pressed down harder than I could bear. I used to pause halfway, unable to keep climbing, wondering if the silence inside my door would swallow me whole. But today, the stairs didn't resist me. They lifted me, step by step, as if they had been waiting not for him, but for me to return. I realized the climb wasn't about who I find at the top. It was about reaching it at all, and letting the light through the window fall on me instead of memory. The bag from the shop rested on the table. Bread, a few vegetables, enough to remind me of something simple. I didn't need a recipe. The steps were already in me. Water, salt, chop the onions, let the garlic soften in oil. It felt almost like memory, but not of him, not of loss. Just of all the kitchens I ever stood in, watching hands work, listening to pens whisper, smelling food that promised ordinary warmth. For so long, this room carried shadows, but now it only carried sound. The knife, the spoon, the steam curling up into sunlight. Cooking wasn't for him. It wasn't for us. It was just for me. And in that, there was no shadow left, only a meal waiting to be made. I set the bowl down, steam curled upward, but the chair across from me stayed empty. I ate slowly, each spoonful warm, steady, ordinary. It filled my body, but it didn't fill the room. I caught myself thinking, what if the seat wasn't empty? What if laughter still echoed against the plates? What if this meal wasn't mine alone? But the what if didn't change the taste, didn't change the bread on my tongue, the warmth in my hands, the food I had chosen for myself. The ache stayed, so did the silence. The room didn't soften just because I wished it would. But I understood something then. This was how it ended, not because it had to, but because I chose it to. I chose to walk here. I chose to climb. I chose to cook. And now I chose to eat alone. Not waiting, not asking the chair across from me to fill itself with a ghost. It was my choice for it to end. And maybe that was enough. The tower gave him stone. The hills gave him breath. The stairs brought him home. The kitchen filled with warmth. And the meal ended with silence that was both empty and chosen. Mateus did not leave Lisbon unchanged. And Lisbon did not keep him prisoner. The echoes had followed him, through walls and courtyards, through streets that turned his breast heavy, through rooms that once answered back. But when he placed his spoon down, he realized the ache would remain, so would the silence. Yet neither could keep him from living, unless he let them. The river moved outside the window. It had always carried more than one story. Ellie's silence, Mateus' absence. Two halves of a weight that no single person was meant to hold alone. Ellie had found his ending in the square, when the pattern no longer repeated. Mateus found his here, at a table with one chair filled and one left empty by choice. Both endings were different. Both belonged to Lisbon. and Lisbon, in turn, carried them equally, not erasing either, not binding either, but letting both become part of its streets, its walls, its river. This was the echo between worlds, a story of stone and silence, of absence and return, of what is carried forward long after voices fall quiet. Not a story of forgetting, not a story of erasing, but a story of living, even when echoes remain. New stories are waiting, new voices, new characters. If you walked with us through the echo between walls, subscribe, like, and share so you won't miss the one still to come. Thank you.